Hello again. In this episode, we'll quickly go over how to create users and set your preferences in Flix. This episode will also feature some tasks that an admin will be responsible for. The first thing I'm going to do is create a user, and for that we'll go into the Management Console under File, Management Console, or you can also hit Control Dot on the keyboard. The first category on the Management Console is the User Management. From here, you'll be able to modify these settings if you're an admin. You can see which users are admin by seeing the admin column. I can see there's a tick next to my name, so it's showing me that I'm an admin. You can select users and edit or delete them. As an example, I'm going to delete this user. If you have a user selected, you can remove your selection to create a new user. I'm going to call this new user Sketcher and set a password. And I'd like to set this person to a group set specifically for this project. So creating a group is the next thing we'll do. So go into your Group Management tab, and from there, create a group. I'll name this after my show, OLS. Now this is created, I'll assign some members to that show. Go back into the User Management and edit the permissions to access the show. We also need to set this show to a project, so go back into your Home and under the three-dot menu select Edit. From there select Next until you get to the Permissions section. We'll set this to our new group. Now if our new user Sketcher signs in, they'll only be able to access this one show. Back into our Management Console, we are now going to set our studio settings. There are multiple levels from which you can set your preferences, at a studio level, at a show level, and at a user level. Let's first take a look at our studio settings. From here, you can impose settings for the whole studio. This includes all of your users. You can enforce at studio level certain parameters if, for example, in the general settings, you'd like to impose a naming convention across all of the artists working in the studio. Select this box to enforce this. You'll find this option on all these parameters. So the studio settings will override the settings for all of your users. Now let's see the show's settings. To find the show settings, go into your home page and select the three-dot menu and select Settings. From there, you can modify your show's settings. These settings, when enforced, will override the studio's settings. This is because you might want to have a specific set of rules for this particular show. You can see this has an Enforce at Show Level option. So let's enforce the sketching app preferences to using Photoshop for this particular show. What this will do is not enforce this option for all of your users, but instead enforce them specifically when you're working on this OLS show, not when you're working on the Happy Prince show. To reiterate, when you enforce these settings, this will override options enforced at the studio level. Now the last level at which we're going to modify the settings is at the user level. You can find it under File, Preferences. And here you'll see that the options enforced at a studio level will be disabled, so you're not able to change them. If you set your sketching app to, for instance, Storyboard Pro, and remember we set this to Photoshop at the show level, and you open a panel, this will open not with Storyboard Pro, but with Photoshop. This is because at the user level, your settings will be overridden by both the show and studio settings. I hope you enjoyed this episode. In the next episode, we'll get Photoshop set up with Flix.